Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on The Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to The Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise." That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Hey, GLP-1 Plus Sides community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things.
I had a great interview with Dr. Beverly Chang a couple weeks ago, and just talking about like how different people are, right? And how wide the spectrum of obesity is as a disease. Like, I don't know if you've ever noticed this. Shout out to the slow responders. But one of the things that I found interesting is how quick some people who have seen a lot of success on these medications can get, and this is not about any one person in particular. It's just something that sort of I've picked up over the last 2 years, how quickly when some people respond really well, and maybe the medicine just, it's what they needed, right? And it just flips a switch in them and they get to where they want to be. And they're just, they're there and in maintenance and all that. It's interesting how quickly some of those mentalities can revert right back to the way that they were treated when they were overweight. Like, you just need to do this. If you just do that, then you can do this. I just did this, so you need to do that. And like, that's no different than what I've heard my entire life. It's just that there's a medication involved now. And honestly, there's just for some people, there's just not going to be an easy answer. And that's why I think when you talk about community being a tool, it's so important. The community piece, and I write about that in my book, the community, you have to find it. And plus sides might not be your jam. And On the Pen might not be your jam. And Sabrina's Friday Night Live might not be your jam. Although if it's not your jam, you're probably an idiot. But everybody, like, there's so many little communities popping up. And I think that one of the coolest opportunities that we have, and that I think we both do well, is that we're not afraid to reach back and look at somebody who's where we were 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, or just starting, and go, hey, come on up. You come on my show. Like, and you always kind of do it in the hopes that somebody out there like a Rosie O'Donnell will also go, hey, I'll come on your show. I'll come on your podcast. And, it's that kind of mentality, which again is another thing that I think is very unique to the plus sides, that it's just part of the culture of what you've created. And so I realize Kim didn't pay me to come on the podcast and say nice things about the plus sides, but there are so many nice things to be said. So many nice things to be said about what you're doing over here, and so unique. And I just admire what you've done. And like you said earlier, you and I have been able to commiserate at times, to celebrate at times. Congratulations on getting the Row sponsorship. That is a big deal for the plus sides. So we've been able to kind of go through those things together and uniquely sort of understand where, what it takes, and the sacrifices that you have to make. And so it's been a pleasure to go through this past, I can't even remember what the date was. You said season 4, but that's,
yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Every week, right? Like you gotta. Yeah. Eventually, you're like a 24 episode. You're like, we should probably call this a season. Like, yeah.
It probably was like around a year ago. It was like around the summertime. And I remember it being warm out and walking around one day in the backyard of the office that I worked at, and you had just gotten rosy, and you're like, what, how do I make this work on YouTube? And I'm like, okay, well, here's what I've done. And, you got to set this up and make sure before you do this, you do that. Cause if you do this, then you're going to miss out on a lot of, those kind of conversations. And so it's been a pleasure to be able to sort of ride this wave together with the plus sides and like
awesome. You've always been like that too. And I think that's kind of the culture of your show too, right? Is trying to help others. And like, I will tell you, when I was talking with Row about sponsoring the podcast, you came up and she was like, oh my God, it's so great. And I go, I don't watch the news. I just listen to Dave. I don't even, he's my news source for all. Why? Like, he breaks it down in a way that I can understand. He does it quickly. He does it, and where it's literally like where I am anyway. And where everywhere else is just going to be these huge long articles where frankly, like probably 60% of it's probably garbage, And so it's like, I was just done. She was like, me too. And that's huge. Like, you're the source that people are looking to for what's going on with the most important thing that we take that's been healing us, Mm-hmm. So that's a huge deal, So congratulations real quick. So that's really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dixie joined us because she was whining. I don't know if she saw me getting upset. I was like, I need to be with you, Mom. This is Dixie. Dixie's the puppy, if you're listening, which many of you do. She's hanging here. So if I see me wiggling around, it's because I'm trying to keep her in my lap.
I always say that there's 2 things on social media that are cheating: puppies and kids.
Oh, true. So true. Yeah. It's interesting. TikTok Shop won't let you do minors in your videos anymore. I'm like, oh man. that was some good cheating. Oh my gosh. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Good idea. So you've got the book coming out, and we'll make sure that we'll put the book and anything that Dave has going on, like all in the show notes, so you guys can get it whether you're listening or you're watching. I do want like people to know that Dave, do you put your lives on your audio? Because like our lives are on YouTube. So if they want to do lives with us, they do them on YouTube. Do you do your lives on audio as well?
My live show. So lately I have thrown a couple of the, like when I interviewed with Dr. Albert, I threw that one up there. Dr. Chang, I threw that one up there. So sort of as I have an interview that I feel is like going to translate well to podcast, mm-hmm. and the audio is okay, because I'm not about getting, bad reviews because people don't like the audio. And again, like that's part of like, now that I have more bandwidth, I hope that I can clean that stuff up on my own channel. But some of it I do, but for the most part, it's its own. The Weekly Dose podcast, which is a true podcast, it's audio. You can catch the video version on YouTube, but the audio version is literally just, it's a 15 minutes. It's supposed to be around 15 minutes. And it's literally just the weekly dose of GLP-1 news, like whatever is floating around in the news about GLP-1s for that week, whether it's new top-line data on a new drug or whether it's Eli Lilly, saying something about the zepbound supply or a new player in the game altogether. Like that's kind of the news that we cover, and I try to do it in 15 minutes. And then the show is kind of its own separate thing. So every now and again, I'll throw an interview up on the podcast too, but I'm still kind of new at the podcast thing, right? I only started it in February it was early in the year, but I only started it this year because I didn't know what I was doing. and I still kind of don't, but
I still don't. Facts. I still don't. I just kind of go with it. And if anything, like I'm still trying to figure out like subscriptions through like, cause we use like Buzzsprout and versus people who are like want to do subscriptions through Apple. Like it's very confusing. I don't really know what's happening. So I don't know. I got to figure all that out. But I've just been like flying by the seat of my pants, right? This whole time. Like, all right, let's do that. All right, let's do that. Let's do that. Like just walk on the path, like whatever puts in front of me. And like, I just sort of will feel if it's like the right way to go and I'll just go there. And sometimes I'm not sure. And I do feel like the further and further I get into becoming a content creator, the less sure I am than I was in the beginning. It's just, it gets more and more complicated, you know? But I mean, it's for sure something that like, I mean, I'm not walking away from, you know, of course. But it is a lot. And, you know, on top of it all, every time I turn around, I come up with some other harebrained idea. Like I was like, I'm going to make a documentary. You know what I'm saying? And I've been recording the documentary. Like we did lose someone on our team. So that slows things down quite a bit. But I wanted to get something out there because people have been asking me, like, we just can't wait to hear the story. Right. And for those of you that like are new to listening, the whole idea is about the movement. So like my documentary is focused on what happened on TikTok, what's been happening from a political perspective, right? During the same time as all of this, what's been happening from a bias and from the media and from society. And it's just everything that happened on TikTok from when we started creating as what many people call OG creators for GLP content. And it's about a movement. It's about how that was born, how the podcast was born, and how I met Dave and all of those different things, like all the different people and how the iterations. I mean, I'll be honest, like, and I don't mean this in a cocky way, but if you see people's lives now, they are blueprints of me and JT's because we were the ones, me and JT and B and a few of those like original people. And so we learned kind of what to say, how to say, and not to be giving medical advice and like the different ways to do it, right? And it's a blueprint. It's the best thing I've ever experienced to go in somebody's live and hear that. Like, you know?
Kim, I just started recently doing lives and exactly what you're saying, like the things like having listened to you and to JT and Candace, all of them, you know, like that's exactly what I know that I'm doing.
But it's great though, because like we've well, and then people have variations, of course, and do things kind of their own little way and spin things up. But the types of questions that you're answering, the way that you answer them responsibly without giving medical advice, like all of those things, we in a way as a community have organized, right? And that's huge, you know, that we can do that. And that's just going to help us get louder and louder and help more and more people, you know? Sorry, the dog is screeching, so I went on mute. Well, we've been talking for quite a while. I feel kind of bad. I want to make sure we covered everything. Dave, I feel like you've had. Go ahead, Sabrina. What's up?
I'm sorry. I just have one question for Dave.
Yeah.
So, out of everything that's in the pipelines right now, what are you most excited about? Which new one are you most excited about?
Oh, medicine. Which medicine? Yeah. So, I mean, my easy answer to that is the next one. The next one is the one I'm most excited about, and that would be CagriSema. And there are definitely, like, when you're just talking about weight loss, like, I mean, I kind of see 5 years from now, like, we're not going to be, I think that's kind of what people grab onto right now is like, at least what videos like people like to watch is like, how much weight are people losing with this new thing. Right. But I think like over the next 5 years, you're going to see that conversations are going to start to fade because there's going to be so many, and they will have found the right combinations and the right pathways so that Kat can get to where Kat wants to be. And, you know, the new medicines work for her the way that tirzepatide has worked for others. Right. So I think we'll get away from that conversation more and more over the next 5 years, and the conversation will shift more. And this is what I'm most excited about. It'll shift more towards how do we get oral formulations that can do the same thing so that the whole world can experience this, and so that there can be more accessibility. And so these stupid pens, like, we don't have to have stupid hashtag campaigns like release the vials because we're so at our wits' end about accessibility, right? That's what I'm excited about. CagriSema specifically, I'm excited about because it's basically just wegovy, it's semaglutide, but they've added an amylin agonist to it. And amylin is a hormone, and this Dr. Chang really took me to school on amylin in the episode that we did with her a couple weeks ago. But it's co-secreted in the pancreas with insulin. And so if you have reduced beta cell function in your pancreas, which is responsible for releasing insulin and amylin, you're not only probably not making enough insulin, but probably amylin as well. So it poses a really unique opportunity for diabetics as well. And so when you talk about diabetics not responding as well to the current treatments that are out there, amylin agonism is a super exciting prospect, because people with diabetes tend to respond from a weight loss standpoint better than they have to the existing pathways. And like I said, CagriSema is the next one to hit the market, probably in 2026. But that's the one I get most excited about, just because it's the next one. And I think it's hard not to be excited about the next one.
Yeah, for sure. In this space, like, this class of medicine is not going anywhere, and people have got to get on board. Like, you're so, like, it's funny now when I get comments that are like, you're taking it from the diabetics, or when I get comments that are like, there's no long-term studies. I'm like, this conversation is so 2023, like, or so 2022, like, catch up, bro.
It's
Like,
you know, 2005, like, there's been plenty of research. You know what? Speaking of like the community getting power and the base, do you feel, I say the base being GLP-1 users, we're not talking about anything else. In today's climate, we have the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act. Yeah. Do we have hope because of this community? And will this spill, do you think they would spill into like, say, PBM reform, or fighting to get it covered in our insurance? What do you think? This is for anybody on the floor.
Well, I'm happy to weigh in on this, because this has like really been a big Treat and Reduce Obesity Act to a lesser extent, but definitely the power of the voice of the community to impact change. So when we talk about the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act, like I do think that'll pass. Like the Lilly and Novo are banking on it passing, but they're also not banking on it passing anytime real soon. And so the great thing about Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, having foreseen that they weren't going to wait on Washington, D.C. to do anything, did these trials like the sleep apnea trial for tirzepatide or the heart failure studies for both tirzepatide. And those are going to be your backdoor ways, if you're on Medicare, to a GLP-1 without, the obesity indication. That said, on the PBM reform, so the answer is yes. I think we have, like, many people in my circle know about the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act just because I talk about it, right? And I know that that's true of the tens of thousands of people that create content or watch it on TikTok and YouTube. On the PBM reform side, like, great things are happening. Just today, there was a hearing on Capitol Hill where they were grilling PBMs and basically saying, you guys are arbitrarily bringing up the price of these medications. Everything that you're doing is creating a monopoly, and it has to change. This wouldn't be allowed in any other sector of our economy. It shouldn't be allowed in this. And this is the kind of conversation that's happening on Capitol Hill today towards C-level executives of these PBMs. That's really positive. And if you want to take it a step further and go, well, what's actually happening legislatively? Just 2 weeks ago, there was a great PBM reform bill passed in Illinois, in the state of Illinois. And so I know, Sabrina, this affects you, right? But Governor Pritzker in Illinois signed a bill into legislation that gets rid of step therapy in Illinois, right? That's amazing. Now, I'm sure that these PBMs have probably been wargaming this, so there's probably already something they're ready to pull out that'll make it just as easy for them to deny people. But the thing that it does is it gives the other states a blueprint to know how they're going to react. So when the states next door, like Iowa, hopefully get their own PBM reform bills in there, that they can be kind of a step ahead of what these companies are trying to do. Not only did it get rid of step therapy, but for things like mental health, right? They got rid of the requirement for a prior authorization. So if somebody needs emergency mental health treatment, a prior authorization is illegal. And that's just the start, right? So that is really meaningful PBM reform legislation. There was some in Oklahoma just a few weeks before that. Didn't go quite as far, but you're seeing you're seeing states take up this issue because it's really a monopoly that's been allowed to exist for too long. These insurance companies have become too large. And ultimately what it's coming down to is a few very small companies controlling absolutely every facet of healthcare. And it's very dangerous for this country. So our voices will continue to be, I think, a very important piece to that puzzle as we look beyond, like, how do we impact the landscape of healthcare beyond just our GLP-1 community. Like today, I made a video about a new company. It's called Varcode with a V. So like barcode, but with a V. And they have this little contraption that can go on a box of medication. They pull this little tabby out. And then while that medication's in transit, it's going to record when that temperature gauge on it went either below or above what the medication holding temperature is and for how long, so that when you get it in your hand, you scan it with an app and you go, oh, I was out of temperature for X amount of time. Every single medication that requires cold storage or temperature controlled storage should have something on that if you're required by your PBM to get it through the mail. Right. And so like I kind of grab onto these issues that like really that transcends the GLP-1 community. There are many people on biologics, all sorts of medications that those like, and those are the kind of things that I think if we can just be aware that they exist, we can be very loud about this kind of stuff. And that gets me excited to think about maybe impacting part of the conversation that transcends just this community, because there are many communities like ours online, which was surprising to me, you know, but people with cancer, people with rheumatoid arthritis.
Mic is messed up. I don't losing all your audio. Yeah. Did you guys hear that? It was like really bad.
A little fuzzy.
Yeah. It was you ended at there are other communities out there like ours is where you were.
Yeah. So there's other communities like ours, which was surprising to me. I don't know why it should be, but people with for cancer, for rheumatoid arthritis, for lupus, for IBS. I mean, just like any chronic sort of disease that you can think of, there's a lot of communities. And so I like the idea of hopefully being able to move past some of these stupid arguments that we've had to fight to things that we can agree on with people outside of this community, like temperature controlled medications is a super important thing. Not only for us, there's actually a Medi-gal whose son takes a medication for a chronic disease. They're forced to go to specialty pharmacy through their PBM and get it mail order. It was abused from a temperature standpoint, and it almost took her son's life.
Oh my God.
And so, I mean, and there are lots of stories like this, like we need PBM reform, but in the meantime, there's solutions for this. They should be, if they require you to get your medication through mail order, then they should be required to ensure that medication was handled properly between the time it left with the UPS guy and landed on your doorstep.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree totally. You mentioned something in your post. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go.
That still is very profound, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to hear it again. That the law that Illinois passed, it falls into preventing the insurance companies from practicing medicine, because at the end of the day, that's what insurance is doing. They're vetoing. They're turning down what a medical professional has deemed what you need for treatment. And they decided to, hey, we're going to practice medicine. So I just want to touch on that again, because it grinds my gears.
It's some bullshit. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And insurance companies are practicing medicine, and they're not doctors.
They are. I think the most eye-opening thing for me on my own as a personal anecdote, I was on the phone. I had switched to Ozempic for a little bit of time, just because I was curious if Semaglutide would treat me better than tirzepatide did. And, for the long and short of that, for anybody who's curious, I held my weight for 4 months while I was on Ozempic. It didn't go up. It didn't go down. I didn't have any more side effects or anything. I just felt I felt more full on it than I did, but I thought about food more on Semaglutide than I did tirzepatide. All that to say, the insurance company, when I switched to Ozempic, they're like, we want to make sure this is the right medication for you. So they really fought my prior authorization and really made that difficult on both myself and my doctor. And I said, it's not your job to determine if I'm on the best medication. That's my doctor's job. And this is where it was fascinating to me. The lady said, and this is a representative for CVS Caremark. She said, sir, I'm not supposed to say stuff like this, but this just is the way that it is. I had to tell an 80-year-old woman today that she wasn't going to get her cancer medication. That's what we're dealing with. And I thought, first of all, it was like, and it wasn't like this lady was saying this to be like, quit your whining, people have it worse. It was just like, dude, this system's broken. And I'm right in the middle of it, and I don't like it any more than you do. And I just thought that was a real profound moment for my understanding personally about how badly the PBMs and the insurance companies in this country need to be reined in.
Food has definitely been a very dominant voice in my head. That's not the main focus anymore. Dieting, exercising, and adding GLP-1s through Roe is a game changer. I have such a sense of mental freedom since I started with Roe. Food no longer controls my thoughts. Family time used to revolve around food, and now it revolves around what we're gonna go do together.
I'm Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. Big news for Semaglutide. I'm the most elusive of all the doses. So I have a couple theories, and I'm interested to hear yours. The first, who likes my Karnak hat? Jokes about tirzepatide. You are on the pen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like so bad. I know that Kat is a big fan of Katie Porter. Right?
She's from Iowa. She's from Fort Dodge, where my parents are from.
Hey.
She's a farm girl from Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like I've seen you make some sort of content on things that she was doing back when I feel like they were kind of grilling the PBMs.
The white
and people may not know about that content because it's been a while ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about that?
Are you asking me or Dave?
Either one.
Oh,
I don't know.
The whiteboards.
I'm really bad with names.
So she's the one that was so she was the one that what is her like place in politics? I can't remember.
She is a congresswoman representative of California.
Yeah.
She is very
she's the one that gets the whiteboard out. And she's like,
what sense does this make?
Oh,
saving my time when everybody starts.
She's sitting on the floor with pots and pans or something at one point.
No,
I did see a video where she was trying to explain some legislation, and she had a bunch of pots out on her floor and a little whiteboard. And
yeah, that's
I think I know what you're talking about.
That's her. Yeah, yeah, but she really was. She was talking to like a pharmacist, and she was like, "Why does that person over there come in and tell you?" Like she was breaking it down, like the whole idea about how like, and she was talking to a farm, and you could tell he was on her side. Do you know what I mean? But he also had to be careful because that's how he gets paid, right? Through the insurance companies. And she was like, if I walk in off the street, am I going to pay the same amount of vitamins, right? For vitamins that this other person is. And he was like, yes, for vitamins. And she was like, well, why is that not the same for these medications? Like when they have insurance versus when they don't, like, why do you charge more for whatever? And he's like, because of the PBMs. Yep. But the price didn't change, right? And it wasn't not fair. But it's funny how she'll just like get this whiteboard out and she'll just break it down to this like simple, stupid. You know what I mean? And it's a good
I don't math, and I understand what she's saying.
I don't math either. I don't
grilled a PBM, which was amazing. So I need to go find some of those.
Those would be good.
Some of those videos, but
they need to get shared more because I think that there are people that
they were last year, but they
like me who I really stay away from anything political on social media. I mean, like I don't care how I feel. I don't care how you feel. I don't care. It's such for me. It's a toxic. Like it doesn't matter if I'm gonna do anything political. I'm gonna do it on my own, and it's not gonna be on the internet. And I just don't. I just don't do it.
I won't touch it.
You don't touch it. It's like religion, like in politics, like like you're just not.
With it.
If I didn't do this, I would probably have a podcast about religion and politics.
That's what's next, Dave. On the pen, on the word.
Dave, on the politics.
Break from Roe, Dave talks about who he's going to vote for this year.
Oh, yeah, I don't do it at all. But it's just because it just like sucks my soul, and I feel like you're either like real sensitive to that or you're not, and I just can't. I just feel like I don't know the answer, and it's just coming out everywhere. You know,
I think that we all can agree
like
though. PBMs, insurance, like it's just they're full of what Kim's favorite word is. It horse shit. Yeah, horse shit. They're full of horse shit. Katie Porter has been fighting the good fight. I'm gonna have to resurrect and find some of those whiteboard videos.
And those are some good ones. We should reshare them.
I think the one. There was some pretty famous footage of her back during that C word era of 2020, where she grilled. I can't recall who she grilled, but she got the Americans to get free COVID. I said the word. Free COVID tests.
That was a dirty word.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
She backed him into a corner.
Yeah, she's a good one. I think it's interesting to see, like, too. I'm really curious, but John was like, we should go when Bernie Sanders is grilling the CEO of Novo Nordisk, like, we should go to DC. I'm like, what would we do there? And he's like, I don't know. We should just be there. We should be there. And I'm like,
are you saying you want us to be on the steps of the Capitol? All this field.
Maybe I'll go with John.
Politics. You go with John.
I think.
But are you saying that you would want all the GLP-1 community to be on those steps? Because I think they would.
I don't know. I bet if I rallied a lot of people, they would probably go. But I don't know. What's the good of us being there? I don't know. Like, I've always been that person.
To be visible.
Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't. Why people just
you'll get coverage then.
Well, I don't really. That's the thing is, I legitimately do not care about my story and my journey and my anything. I am only using any of that as a way for more people to find this resource where I know they're getting sound, right, options for care. They're getting quality information from expert doctors, right? Like, I just want people to know about the podcast. I don't need anybody to ever cover me for anything. I just want people to know about our movement, about our podcast, about what we are trying to do to help people. That's it, you know? But no, media doesn't want to write about good stuff. They have no interest, right? Like, that's just not, they want to write about the sensational thing. They want to write
about, to be fair, the media only wants to do that because that's where people's appetites are.
That's so fair. Yeah, I think it's for sure.
Sponsorships, advertisements, yes.
I don't know, though. I feel like if a big name in media, if the fucking New York Times wrote an article about the movement of people in social media and what they were doing and the podcast, people would watch that. They would be like, they're doing what? Like, that would be it. But nobody tries, Dave. Nobody tries, you know? They're like, we know this works. That's what we're doing. It's typical marketing, right? That's what we think.
Yeah.
All right, follow the data, you know? But how do you know what people do if you're only serving them up trash all the time? I'm sorry, but this is, you know what I mean? Like, in drama all the time. Like, why not serve them up good stuff? You know, but they don't. I know it's a little naive, but why not? That's what we should do. We should start our own not our own podcast, our own paper or some shit where we write stuff. Wait, I don't have time. I forgot.
Yeah. Plus Size Magazine.
Plus Size Magazine. Nobody would read
it. I'll tell you what, if you are into reading, I'll plug my own stuff again. If you are into reading, I've been I'm plugging it now, but I've been putting a lot of energy into the On the Pen. There's a news section. And so if you're like the type of person who likes to read and enjoys getting content that way, I've been putting a lot of effort and energy into that. So, and I try to generally.
Is that what you're doing? You're doing like blogs, Dave?
No, I mean, it's not super bloggy. It's more just like articles. Like, it's just a news article.
That's nice.
And just, you know, I share the news when I make a video.
Sure.
And I thought I should be writing a lot of this stuff. And really, that was sort of the catalyst when I started getting serious about contributing there. Because I haven't been super great about it this month because I've been writing a book. But prior to the last like 3 or 4 months, I was really religiously posting a lot of articles over there. And, you know, just sort of weaving sort of the greater narrative about these medications into the news that comes out about them and just sort of putting them in context for people that are in the community. And so when there's a new drug that drops, you know, like CagriSema, right? This is why this might mean something to you.
Totally.
Not responding to zepbound, well, you know, that kind of stuff. So anyway.
Or how you tapped out. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I think Kat and I are both in this weird maintenance place, but I don't think either one of us necessarily.
I'm gaining.
You gain. I mean, I gain I gain and then I lose, and then I gain and then I lose. It's constant, but I'm not constantly gaining, and that's a state of what I was always in before medicine. So, but I'll lose like 1 pound a month, but in the middle of all that, I gain and then I lose. My body's fighting the shit out of me. Like you know, it is what it is. Like, to quote the sad lady who works at the insurance company, like, you know. But I am very hopeful for those new medicines, because like I do think that it's very easy when you're on these medicines and when they work amazing for you. And if you have been a big responder, or you have, like, look, 105 pounds is a lot of weight, guys, but I ultimately I'm very far from where I'm supposed to be for my height, for my age, all the thing. I'm still very, very far from that. And ultimately I have to decide, and this is a decision. This is where the choice comes. Do I want to diet and go back to that life of the counting and all of that shit and get to that weight, right? Or do I not? And right now the answer is I don't. But a lot of that is not for any other reason except for I've just got so much fucking trauma from diet culture. I've been on a diet since I was 8, you know, and I've got a binge eating disorder. And it's only been the past 2 years that's been, I don't know, remission. I don't know what we call that, you know? But it's like, there's so many more things that are, I think, around the corner. And that's why I don't get caught up on, I'm going to take Mounjaro forever, right? Because I don't think there is a forever right now with obesity, other than I need treatment forever. And I hope to have treatment forever. You know, our friend Tay often will say Mounjaro to the hospice, right? But ultimately, like, there are so many more things that are coming. And I would like to see what that medicine is that maybe gets me on the other end, where I'm not having to eat 1,000 calories a day and exercise 6 days a week to be able to make anything move anymore.
Right.
No?
So I don't say Mounjaro for life. I say GLP-1 for life, right? Because like 10 years from now, we're going to be like, do you remember when we all used to take Mounjaro?
We had hashtag Mounjaro, hashtag Mounjaro journey. We got banned on TikTok. Remember that?
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be Mounjaro, you know, but it's definitely going to be a GLP-1 for life.
But it might be something else. Maybe
I mean, they're right now so in I don't know if you saw this video that I did a couple months ago, Sabrina, but like in China, they've found a way to cure type 2 diabetes by basically injecting beta cells. It's an injection into the pancreas, and it's some sort of maybe stem cell thing. I don't know, but they were able to get this type 2 diabetic who was, I think, on his way to becoming type 1 diabetic, like his pancreas was completely shutting down, and they were able to restore his entire beta cell function and make him not diabetic with one treatment. I think it was just one treatment.
That's crazy.
Don't quote me on that, but I mean, so when you think about the future of, and I realize we're sort of talking about two different things here, diabetes and obesity, but they're so intertwined. Just to show you, like, you know, if they could fix what's wrong with our actual body and get our body to produce, you know, the way that I talk about incretin hormones is for people who are way outside this bubble, is the thing that people don't understand is that connection. There's like a phone line between your gut and your brain. Mm-hmm. And for people with diabetes, with people with obesity, for many people, it's just that phone connection has been cut, you know, for not, you know, to keep it really basic with people. There's no communication anymore. That's why I say, until I got on Mounjaro, at least the first time around when it, you know, was first really working for me, I actually felt full, physical fullness for what felt like the first time in my adult life. Mm-hmm. Like I would have a plate of food and I didn't eat it all. Right. Because prior to, I would eat it all, and then I wouldn't feel anything, really. I wouldn't feel like I just ate food. I could just continue to eat if I wanted to.
Yeah.
With Mounjaro, it was like, I don't have to eat all I don't want to eat all. And that was brand new to me.
Same.
I didn't know what that felt like. And so it's just restoring that connection, right? But if we could restore biologically through some sort of cell therapy or something, so that endogenous GLP-1 or GIP or whatever amylin is produced like it's supposed to, and the receptors are receiving like they're supposed to, I mean, that would be even more amazing. So maybe it'll be even that it's like, do you remember when we had to take shots? Do you remember when we had to take
right?
Yeah.
Dr. Simon Lee was on our show. I say Simon Lee, but I always say Simon because that's how it's written. Was on our show. She's a cardiologist, obesity specialist, and she was on our show, and she told us that there is gene therapy where they're doing this in terms of GLP-1, so where they can literally like cure diabetes by working. And I ain't the sciencey ones, but she was saying like, and she knows the company. I'm like, we need them on the show. Thanks.
Fractal, I think, is the name of the company.
That's right. Yeah. See, I didn't know.
And they have like this. It's like a one and done GLP-1 because what it does is it teaches somehow. I don't know. It's a genetics, and But that's like the future to me of these medications is, like that we wouldn't have to take medicine. Like that would be amazing. But also just like to your point about like, it not being a specific brand name or even specific peptide or even specific hormones. Like I think that the coolest thing about the near term future is that there's going to be options, different pathways to, because like right now it may be that you're getting a nice dose of GLP-1 with semaglutide, or maybe you had a GIP problem and so tirzepatide is working really well. But what if your problem all along was amylin? And so CagriSema comes along, and you're like, now I understand what people were saying when they couldn't look at a plate of food for a week after they took, like things that I could never identify with when certain people talk about.
Oh, I get so jelly.
I know.
You're like, I gotta. But you guys do exercise your face off. I feel like that has to be
okay. Exercise, great. I think also the inconsistency because I got a compound now because insurance. Yeah. That's another concern in the back of my head. All these new therapies that are coming up. What's going to get covered? What are we going to qualify for? But no, I mean, exercise, but having snacks and having
This is off topic. Can I say one thing that's just a nerd thing that I know Kim will be like, what? So I was doing a little bit of, it wasn't even research. I sort of stumbled upon it, but you know how, I know you've been loud about this. I have too, about certain companies offering retatrutide through medical providers, compound retatrutide, which is still phase 3. It hasn't completed FDA clinical trials. Like not telling anybody anything they don't know here. Yeah. But I think I figured out how they're doing it.
How?
So somebody messaged me and they're like, I am working with X telehealth company and I'm on retatrutide through their clinical trial. And I said, their clinical trial? You don't say. So here's what I think might be. And this is where I get to theorizing. Yeah. So, and this is where.
Let me do a little research. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is like where I might like sort of be on board with it.
Okay, I'm listening. Okay.
So during the prior administration, during the C word, there is a low-key, I think, super awesome piece of legislation that came through called the Right to Try Act. And the Right to Try Act, now don't hold me to this because I did just one afternoon a deep dive in this, and this was weeks ago. But the Right to Try Act was passed basically so that if you were somebody with a chronic or terminal disease, and there was a phase 3 candidate, that could treat that disease and the current treatments didn't work for you, that you could basically waiver yourself out, get on a clinical trial for that medication so that you could take a drug that wasn't FDA approved, but, so long as you were reporting, like similarly, I'm going to guess, to a clinical trial. Yeah. So my thought is perhaps what's happening is taking advantage of a right to try loophole that allows people to try retatrutide specifically because it's a phase 3 drug, and it would probably be for people who have failed on current treatments. That is all speculation on my part, but I was racking my brains like, how can any medical provider be offering a drug? Like, where else does this ever happen? And the only thing I can think of was the vaccine, right? But outside of that, I was like, I don't know that there's any examples of it. So I think that may be what's happening. And if so, I would tend to err on the side of doctors and patients. If you have a relationship with your doctor, they know your medical history, they know where you've been with your treatment and sort of looking forward, and you can weigh the risk with them to say, I can either live the next, because retatrutide ain't going to be here till probably 2027, late 2026. But I can't remember. I think the last clinical trial goes to pretty late in 2026. Mm-hmm. Then they have to submit, assuming they get the fast track. We're talking 2027. So is it better for me to live in with a 42, 44 BMI for the next 3 years? Or is it better for me to try an investigational medication that thus far in clinical trials has been very safe and effective? Yeah. So that's where I'm on board.
I don't think that's what's happening. I am on board with exactly what you described, though, and I think it makes total sense. I mean,
so how do you think they're doing it then?
I don't think it's retatrutide. I think it's tirzepatide or semaglutide, and they're fucking lying through their teeth.
You know what?
Charging them expensive money. Yeah, I think they're lying.
Speaking of tirzepatide, aren't we seeing like higher dosages coming up? Like going above 15 milligrams on tirzepatide.
Yeah,
we're seeing higher doses.
Dave? How did the trials work with when they're testing these large doses? Because I remember like a year ago, maybe less, that Dr. Albert was talking about them trying like oral semaglutide at higher doses, and it was successful. But I don't know how long that takes to get approval for that. Like, is it a whole other year? Is it a whole other 2 years?
Yeah. So I just did a deep dive into oral semaglutide this week because Novo Nordisk did successfully test 50 milligrams of oral semaglutide.
Wow.
And they, on an earnings call early this year, had on their timeline that it was going to be on the market this year.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking around July, and I was looking back, and Novo Nordisk actually hasn't submitted it to the FDA yet. And here's why I think that is. Wegovy, and it was 2.4 milligram Wegovy, and this is not semaglutide, and the oral 50 milligram oral formulation daily achieved very similar weight loss. So you're talking about a pill that's going to give you Wegovy level weight loss. The problem is this is 350 milligrams of semaglutide a week, and this is 2.4. So you're using 145 times more of the active pharmaceutical ingredient to achieve the same result. And I don't think Novo Nordisk can make that much semaglutide, because this would be a game changer because all of a sudden you don't have cold storage, you don't have a weekly shot, you don't have the pen, people would flood to it, which would be great for Novo, but they would never be able to scale the API that quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening. But the short answer is, when they give top line data and show the efficacy of a drug that's already on the market, like in the tirzepatide's case, and I have several inside kind of people that are running clinical trials for this have told me it's 20 and 25 milligrams, which if you look at the percentage increase from 2.5 to 5 to 7.5 to 10 to 12.5 to 15, going 15 to 20 and 20 to 25 is from a percentage wise a very similar jump. So that's why you don't see 17.5, 20, 22.5, 25.
Yeah.
So anyways, once they get to the top line data, which I think is supposed to be done for tirzepatide, don't quote me on this, but I think maybe December of this year.
Wow.
Then they have to submit that, and usually within a few months. So we could be talking about this time next year for 20 and 25 milligram tirzepatide.
That'd be a nice in between 2025 and 2026, right?
I think that would work.
I will tell you, my suppression is I get it on both of them, but there is something about that GLP-1 with Ozempic that did something in terms of my anxiety. It controlled it in a way that I can't explain. I've not been able to achieve the same with tirzepatide.
Yeah.
But on tirzepatide, and this like goes back to wish we could hodgepodge it, but tirzepatide gives me a inflammation reduction that makes my life easier to live, and that wins, right? Because I do stuff with anxiety with other things,
My sense is it's the GLP. It's because there's so much less GLP-1 in this.
Yeah, I just wish it was a little.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it because they do feel very different when you take them.
Yes.
And they both are acting in the mind, but I feel like differently. The interesting thing too, I did a video about this past week, and then I don't want to hold y'all hostage all night because I could keep talking till 3 a.m. But retatrutide, which we just talked about, is a 15-to-1. So this is 5-to-1 GIP to GLP-1. Retatrutide is 15-to-1 GIP to GLP-1. So when you break down the percentage in retatrutide, it is 87% GIP. It is 7% GLP and 6% glucagon.
Wow.
So it's a huge GIP medication.
Yeah. And the GIP is really good for the inflammation, I think. Because I remember when I started taking it, I would get on the phone with people or talk with people, and they were like, your face is a completely different shape. And I remember when I first took it too, feeling like, when your foot falls asleep and you get that tingle when it's starting to wake back up. And I remember feeling it right here and being like, oh, what is that feeling? It was inflammation. Right. And that was a game changer for me. The inflammation, especially with the arthritis and all the things so that it wins for me from that perspective. But I think there was a certain, I don't know how to describe it, but I used to have obsessive anxiety. I still have it, but I have it less. It's definitely less with tirzepatide, in terms of with significantly less, but it was eliminated when I was on Ozempic. It was gone. I didn't obsess about anything other than this. other than GLP-1s.
This is an obsession.
Yes, for sure.
This definitely, I've always gone through periods in life where I was myopically focused on something.
Same.
Right. And that's for sometimes it was sports. People talk about things that they don't have much of an interest anymore that they once did. For me, that's sports and politics. Two things that I used to obsess over that honestly anymore, it's but I totally replaced it with this.
Mike in our community mentioned something about being obsessed with politics in the past, and how this time he's kind of well, it's important to him, but it's not obsessive important to him. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's bizarre.
I was telling Kim, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just telling Kim the other day, I was talking to her about, I don't know anybody who consumes GLP-1 information the way you do and the way Dave does. Because you guys are constantly at it, right?
Like little Pac-Man.
And we really do two different things, but they are bookends. They complement each other. You know what I mean? And it's the perfect friendship.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, this has been great. This has been super good. I'm going to need all the links to all your things for the show notes, and we'll make sure everybody finds you.
Yeah. onthepen.com is the funnel by which you can find me on all the things. So
you can check out his articles that he'll have there. He'll have his book there. You're going to launch your book there, right?
Yeah. So the book will be a combination of, at least this is what I'm thinking. I've never published a book before, but I want to have both of, my vision for it is that it's honestly I think everybody in the community would get something from reading it. But honestly, my heart and my vision behind this book is that it would be a book that you would buy, maybe read it, and then give it to your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your best friend, somebody in your life that you just desperately want them to understand the plight of living in an obese body, but then the hope that the current and future treatments for obesity provide in a way that's just easy to understand, right? It's like I kind of weave my own journey into this. Like, you know, I was told at a young age that when I was eating an orange, I was starting to get fat, and I just noticed it. Like, I noticed I had a tummy and my friends didn't have a tummy. I know I had a tummy. I noticed nobody in my family had a tummy. And I remember I was eating an orange and I was like told, like, those are just empty carbs that you're eating. And from that point on, it was cemented in my brain that carbohydrates were the reason that I had a tummy, and I was going to avoid them for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I did. I mean, that's what I said. Like, it's like the beginning. You can just kind of, as you write it out, you go, oh,
yeah. That's a good point, Dave. Like, I think that's so true about the young thing. Like, cause so I was talking with Sabrina. I go to a shrink. Y'all know I talk about it a lot. And when I was telling her about all these things that I was doing like a year ago, she was like, you need to write a book. I was like, I don't have time to write a book. Right. And I was telling Sabrina, I was like, maybe I need to get a ghostwriter. And then I looked at how much ghostwriters cost, and I'm like, I guess I'm writing the book, you know, and because so, that goes back to like rejuggling and figuring out how things work, but like, I had a similar experience that you were having with think about when I was young. Like, I remember being in the kitchen with my mom. It was my first diet. We were on Weight Watchers together. I was 8, Dave. I was 8 years old, and we were over a rice cake, drizzling it with Hershey's syrup, trying to get us something that would taste good to our brain to appease us so that we could rest, so that we could go to bed and feel like we had gotten the thing. So rice cake when I was 8. So from the beginning, I was like, oh, I need to fill myself with non-good things, right? Or like with Weight Watchers, the free foods, binge on fucking corn, right? And stuff like that, because those are free points. I can eat a shit ton of shrimp because those are free points. You know what I mean? And that happened for me in my life just died. And it's just like any kind of trauma that shapes you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of changes you forever. It really does, that stuff changes you forever. And I have to constantly tell myself, just like you were saying, like when you're making your decisions with like keto and all those things, I have to go, it's okay for me to have this. There are nutrients in this. Food is fuel. Food is fuel, right? That's what it is. It's not good or bad. It's fuel, it's a lot. The book thing is intense. Yeah.
It definitely has been therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
It's been eye-opening. And I hope that for people who are outside, like I've written it in a way that I would want it to be written to pass off to people in my life. That I want you to understand A, what it's been like, and B, why I can be so excited about something that I create a whole internet thing about. Like I devote a big portion of my life to it. Because it is, again, and I haven't even been a super responder to it, but it has changed the game for me as a diabetic. And I think back to even like the success that I have had on it. For the first time in my adult life, the last 2 years, I was down a greater numbers at one point, but I've been down 10% of my body weight for 2 years now. And every single year of my adult life was a steady climb to a 5% more or whatever it was, but it's always more at the end of it. And so, I just hope
that's a win. That's a win.
I hope that it can be that for people, because I really think that is we joke about it, and we say it as kind of a funny thing, GLP1 evangelism, but there's an element of truth to it, because if people can understand the reason for the hope that treatment has given people like us, they'll start, that will sort of help to bring down the walls that people have up towards these things, which are completely unfounded, but also understandable, because this disease has been completely misunderstood. It's completely misdiagnosed and completely mistreated for so many years. And like, we're just sort of at the advent of understanding and treating, and it's exciting.
So true. Yeah. I think it's, we're kind of just on the cusp of it. Right. And I think, I just made a video before we got on here about this woman that was like, I won't hire fat people. I don't respect fat people. So James made a video about it. And she was like, I gained 30 pounds in 3 months just so that I could prove that I could lose 30 pounds in 3 months and like all this other stuff. And he was like, what the hell's wrong with you? And I stitched that video. And like, I was thinking, like in that video, I said, I remember when I was a little girl and a boy had called me Jenny Craig. And this boy had buck teeth and really thick goggle glasses. Looking back, I should have just like obliterated him. And now that I am stronger, that's what I would have done. But I told my dad about it, and my dad is a strong Christian, and usually he would teach me like, let's not do that. Be a leader, not a follower, like all the things, right? And instead he goes, next time that boy says something to you, I want you to say, I can always lose weight, but tomorrow you'll still be ugly. And I did. And that boy never messed with me again.
You can't fix ugly.
You ugly. Oh, you can't fix ugly, baby. Yeah. So I think there's a lot for people, to learn. And there's so many people that don't know. And that's what we're doing. Right. And we just have to continue. I think my struggle is trying to find and scoop up the new people. Right. Because the people we've already helped, they just kind of check in with us. Right. Mm-hmm. But the people that need all of the help of the things that we do, we got to find them.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do without alienating the people that are sticking around with you because they can only hear about sulfur burps and constipation so many times.
So true.
Hell,
so I can only hear about that so much. Like when I go on the lives and that's like 80% of the conversation, I'm like, but buy enzymes. I just want to be like, click this link. Buy enzymes. Click this link. Don't drink when you eat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like for the side effect conversation, there needs to be like a FAQ. We should make one, a side effect FAQ. Something. Go to the FAQ on my bio. I can't answer any more of these questions or I'm going to lose my mind. But like they need, that's how I got the followers I got.
What's her name? Very few people that I constantly will stop, when I scroll through, and I just can't remember her name, but there's a gal over on TikTok, blonde hair, real fun, bubbly personality. She's in the hospital for a little while. Oh, I'm kicking myself that I can't remember her name. She's so sweet. But anyways, she does a really good job of that. She just got it in her background. Here's like side effect, what you do, side effect, what you do, side effect. That's so that she doesn't have to answer that like 80 times. And yeah, she's a trip. I wish I could remember.
That's
her name.
Awesome.
Maybe she's watching. Put it in the chat.
Maybe Plus Size should do that. And like I could get doctors to sign off so people know it's not like garbage.
Yeah. And then just throw it up on the Plus Size website.
Yeah. And then just be like, here.
Good idea.
It's a good way to get the website too. Oh, Dave, check it out. Oh, marketing in the room. Oh,
yeah.
I love it.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been almost 2 hours here, and my family's probably like, it's bedtime, Daddy.
Yeah. Wrap it up, Dave. Jeez.
It's been a pleasure. I so appreciate you. Appreciate all you do over here, all of you.
I appreciate you
all have got something wonderful going here. Kim, obviously, you've put your heart and soul into building it, but you've picked some really great people to tag along on this journey. And so just love what you're doing over here always. And I really look forward to what the next year is going to bring when we can circle. Hopefully we don't wait another year to do this, but
no, we'll do it again.
That we can check in with each other in another year and go, can you believe this past year, and just talk about all the amazing things that have happened. And it's so,
and the book and the documentary which are going to happen.
Right. Just like Cena would say, the future is bright.
The future is bright.
He's so proud of himself on that one.
I know.
The future is bright. Indeed it is. He's not wrong.
Well, it's been lovely. And thank you so much. And we will do it again. I feel like a year in GLP world is too long because so much happens. So we'll do 6 months. That's going to be our checkpoint.
There you go.
About Christmas time. And then we can talk about all the blessings that are coming up.
That's right.
Okay, great. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Make sure you follow On the Pen on YouTube, on TikTok, all the places, and go to the website to get all the things we've talked about. I will put it in the show notes. But other than that, hasta la pasta, and we will see you next week.
Hasta la pasta.
20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here.
Big news for Semaglutide. I'm the most elusive of all the doses.
So I have a couple theories, and I'm interested to hear yours. Who likes my Karnak hat?
Jokes about tirzepatide.
You are on the pen.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.